Well, good afternoon. Just a wrap up of the council meeting for the City of Grand Rapids for September 11th, 2017. The work session this afternoon consisted of two basic areas. One was to look at a proposed aggressive panhandling ordinance within the City of Grand Rapids. There are a lot of, you can't prohibit panhandling, but you can certainly try to put some limits on where and how panhandlers conduct their asks and requests for assistance and help. So the chief was in and we were presented with a proposal that we will look at, and it'll come back in 2 weeks for final approval. The other thing we did at the work session this afternoon was we continued to look at the proposed tax levy for the City of Grand Rapids, and the good news is that the last year's total tax rate of 82.208 is only going up slightly. It's going to be 82.600, and there is a possibility that that will go down a little bit more yet, in that we have some savings due to a change in health care benefits and requirements of moving employees to a different health care package within the City of Grand Rapids that could actually save employees money and save the City of Grand Rapids money. We do have one tax capacity question that has to be answered yet at the county level, and that is the drop in total tax capacity. When we look at all the new businesses and stuff that have started and we take a look at where it is, we think that it may be in the 20% of the businesses and homes that are assessed or reassessed every year, and some of those values may have dropped, whether it's a business value of the business or the value of a home that may have dropped and might have dropped that total tax capacity number. During the council's regular meeting on the consent agenda, just a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. We got about $47,000 of a grant towards zero death for the police department to work with. We finally changed the final change order with Casper Construction as it relates to the 2017 infrastructure improvements projects. We are advertising for staff to go out and look for 2 additional people for the Police Advisory Committee. So if you're interested in being a member of that committee and going in and working with the police department on how we can better coordinate the activities of communications and stuff between residents and the PD, please watch for the postings to be coming out. We'll be looking for 2 additional people on that advisory panel. We adopted the art adoption and acquisition policy. We talked about that 2 weeks ago on how and what we can do from an art perspective on where public art should and could be exhibited, and how we could handle that and how the request would go through, what department would finalize and say, yeah, that looks like good public art, and these are some places that it would be allowed within the City of Grand Rapids. So we did adopt that final policy. And then we are also amending the job description for security officers. As you recall, over a year ago, probably closer to 2 years ago, the City of Grand Rapids, under our police department, to provide security services with Grand Itasca Clinic and Hospital, adopted where we have employees that operate under the police department umbrella, but they are not full-time employees of the City of Grand Rapids. They are employees that work under the police department but are compensated through a fee that is paid by Grand Itasca Clinic and Hospital to the city to provide those services. Tonight we had our Chief of Police in, and he gave a department head report, and one thing that I am happy to announce is that through 6 months from where we were last year at about 10,500 for the year of incidents in various capacities, whether it's DWIs, thefts, assaults, burglaries, you name it. About 10,500 last year. We're at about 4,500 halfway through this year. So we're hoping that that trend continues through the second half of the year, and that the 10,000, actually we could get that down into a single digit of hopefully somewhere in the 9,000 range. So very optimistic that the work that the police department is doing out there in 14 different community areas where they're working with public, whether it's National Night Out, DARE, Shop with a Cop, you name it, towards zero deaths, some of the programs that our police department is actively volunteering to go out and work in the community on is paying benefits. At least in my mind, it's paying benefits, and that we've seen a trend downward in a lot of these areas. DWIs, I know, was down substantially so far for halfway through the year. So a nice report from the Chief of Police this evening. Engineering, we had a public hearing this evening, and what we had looked at there was doing the final assessments for our 2009-2017 assessments for all the projects that are happening in the city of Grand Rapids, and it came out very well from an assessment standpoint, about $22 per foot. The projects were assessed. You typically can assess up to 20% of the project cost, but because of the funding sources where we were able to pull money, whether it's from public utilities or stormwater utilities or grant monies, that project cost came in that's going to be assessed out to the property owners, not 20% but 13%, which is bringing their costs down as well. And then we did authorize city staff to begin the process to look at filling a joint position under GIS between the city and the public utilities. Instead of each area, public utilities hiring somebody for GIS and the city hiring additional support for GIS, we're looking at one position that would fill in under the city's umbrella, but they would report, and the cost of that employee would be split between the PUC and the city of Grand Rapids. So all in all, a very quick council meeting. It's about 5 minutes to 6, so a lot done under the consent, the public hearing, and then the action that we took as a council. So we're looking forward to meeting again in 2 weeks, and I would remind folks this is the 16th anniversary of the tragedy that happened at the towers and the Pentagon and stuff. So think about some of those things out there, what privileges we have in the United States and in our own city and county and in the state that you live in, and hopefully that you have some time to reflect out on what volunteers and what people are doing on our behalf every day out there from a standpoint of keeping us as citizens of the United States healthy and free. So with that, get out and enjoy the evening. It's very nice out there right now. Take a walk, take a ride. Please be careful when you're doing each and every one of those activities, and we look forward to talking with you in 2 weeks.